Almost a week ago, I did a video on this show that I was really wanting to do. And this is, I guess, I don't want to call it a sequel, but an addendum to that. I've had a pretty good idea in my mind of the main villain who's supposed to have an alternate identity and wear a costume so that people don't know who he is, and that it's supposed to be like a real twist on the usual angle where the hero knows the villain's identity, but the villain doesn't know their identity, whereas in this case the heroes know the villain's modus operandi, but they don't know who he is. So the villain has a secret identity, whereas the heroes are all maskless and just going about as themselves. But the issue I've run into is that where I think it's really, I don't want to call it easy for me, but a lot simpler to just draw, regular people, somebody wearing some jeans or some a do-rag or whatever. I started to kind of run into a problem with designing the way the villain would look, like in his armor, or I guess his costumed appearance. Uh, I make no secret of the fact that I get influenced by things when I imagine like who he's supposed to be. This ghoul, this businessman who appears outwardly nice and pleasant, but behind closed doors is actually a murderous, psychopath. I think of the Green Goblin from the 2002 Spider-Man film. This first image you're seeing here probably, I mean, I know I don't try to just, rip stuff off on purpose, but I think you can kind of see the influence where, you've got this mask covering the whole face. What I really liked about this one is that you can I probably have to pull up like a zoomed in version, but what I tried to do is that where the mask has like the mouth open, you can see what is based off of Defoe's facial features. So like the idea is that if you look hard enough, you can tell it's not just some, space of darkness, that there's like lines that show who it is, or at least you would be able to tell as the viewer, hey, that's the same person, even if, without actually having it confirmed until, shortly in, but still, like it wouldn't be designed in such a way as to not tip you off. Now, like the little machine gun that's mounted on the shoulder. The idea behind the panel that's on the torso is that it's supposed to be the blade of a sword that can kind of like bend and go onto the side. So like if he's fighting someone, he can just pull this sword off of him and use that as his weapon. And normally I would have him in like a cloaked appearance. So like you would see the mask or even like a portion of it and then have the cloak kind of over it and then just covering the whole rest of the costume, or I guess the armor. And then only when he's starting to fight, so when he just throw the cloak off and fully just show himself. But I thought if I drew him in that appearance, it would be kind of, not that, what's the way of putting it, inspired, because cloaks are basically the same old thing where it's a little gown looking, frock that is put on top of this person, and they can. I just think it didn't. I thought it would be more productive just try to design what the armor would look like. And I went with this, even though I know it's kind of simple. The idea is that when you get it colored, you get the mixtures of green and purple, and just kind of get to play a little bit more with the general palette of it. Because most of the other characters, like I noticed this, you have blue, you have purple. There's not really anyone that's just green or any other. Like the palette's pretty limited, as I've started to kind of realize. But yeah, this is I don't dislike it, and it's probably my preferred one, only for reasons that we're going to get into with the second one. It's just I'm still like working on it. Like this, and in terms of stuff I'm satisfied with, I like the mask. I like the idea of having it done in such a way where the person's like eyes are shielded by like those red lights, like these flashing red eyes, but then you can still see, a little bit of who they are from the mouth. So, and also like the pointed fingers, which is supposed to be like claws, like just chipping into you when he's fighting you. Um, but again, it's the default one I'm liking so far. I really just kind of have to fiddle around with it a little bit more, and then I'll be more intent to say if I like it or not, all the way. The other one, I showed this to somebody and they said they preferred it. And I get it, I understand. This is kind of an in joke where I had said in my Chucky video that I'm scared of spiders. So like when I try to design the main villain of a whole season, right? The villain's supposed to trump all the other villains. They're either going to answer to him or they're going to conflict with him. But he's the one who's going to be, I guess, effectively calling the shots for a couple of other antagonists. With this appearance, specifically the way the mouth looks, right? That is designed to mimic the appearance of a spider's teeth, or I guess the face, like the facial structure of one from that part. And the fact that it's closed in also, like, at least this was my intention. I wanted to make the like lines of the mouth and the nose kind of not look that different from each other, to make it seem like there could be multiple mouths on this person. The eyes were literally me just squiggling, just like going and taking my I don't want to call it my pen, but just just throwing stuff at the wall, basically. You can kind of, the only real similarity between this design and the other one is that it has the claw fingers, and then also the same sort of lines on the neck. And I would say that this didn't make it into the version I put in the video, but I was pretty intent on having the words dead on his torso, right? The DE on one side and the 80 on the other, just as like an announcement of like, hey, you've seen me. I will be the last thing you see. With the lines that are on there, I ran into a bit of a snag. I was gonna say, oh, this is the blood of his victims that he like has decorated himself with, but I kind of don't want to do that. At least it'll be like this. I would like to maybe keep the dead part on the torso because I think it makes him stand out visually, and maybe base things like make that part look more distinct. But I really am kind of reluctant to go along with having so much detail on the like legs, and just because a lot of this stuff with concepts, for example, they look really cool, when you're drawing it that first time, the second time. But if you're doing a show, if you're animating it, if you're having to draw it over and over, it can get tedious doing the panels and making sure it looks the way it did on this other picture. And that's what I'm most concerned about. I like this design. I think, because my philosophy was always the protagonist. I knew what they were going to look like. I knew that the grandparents are going to look like my grandparents. The little brother's going to look like my little brother. Best friend's going to look like my best friend, etc. I had an idea going in of like, this person will look like this. So there was never like an internal struggle with, making things look a certain way. But with the villains, it's been a much more complicated task, because I might have an idea of like, okay, I want this to look like this, or at least be inspired by this. But then, to what extent is this going to resemble the other thing, to where people can just say, oh yeah, this is clearly, ripping off that. I think this design, the one thing I like about more than the other one is like, it's a lot more distinct. Like the top part of the head is supposed to be like flaming hair. And what I mentioned in my Ghoul video is that he has like this slicked back hair. So it's kind of another like visual indicator that this is the same person. Like if you saw him in his suit and tie, the two things that would match, his attire when he's wearing his, armor here, is the flaming hair has like the same pattern, right? The slicked back parts at the top. And then you can see like like the mouth. And I know it's not going to come out that easy on, from how small the picture is here, but you can see the same, like the facial features are the same on both of them. So those are the two things that I enjoy. But those panels, man, like I think maybe again the compromise will be to try to possibly see what more details I can put on the first one, and then just kind of keep picking and choosing if I want how far they go along with it. But I like both of these. I can't really decide which one I like more. They both have things I like about them, things that I would probably improve. So I'm just having some trouble picking the design of my main villain, of the person who will terrorize the cast for a whole year. Let me know which one you prefer.